What's going on, everyone? So, I'm sure many, if not all of you, are at least familiar with Nick Wright. I actually kind of like Nick Wright. I know some people can't stand him. Uh, don't get me wrong; sometimes his takes are a little crazy, a little carried away. But I just feel like that's part of the persona, that's part of the character. Sometimes he actually does have some pretty good takes, makes some sense. I think he's entertaining, right? I just think like the way he goes about things is pretty funny sometimes. But yeah, not somebody that I look at as gospel, so to speak, right? It's just kind of like I'm working or I'm doing something. Let me throw on first take. Oh, what crazy thing is Nick Wright gonna say today? Oh, that thing actually kind of makes sense. And Nick Wright recently said something that actually kind of makes sense. So he talked about the Phoenix Suns and Bradley Beal. And he compared essentially Bradley Beal with Austin Reaves and said that Austin Reaves would be the better third option for an NBA championship for the Phoenix Suns. So here's exactly what he said. I'll read you what he said. So he said, "Let me be very clear. I think if you're trying to win a championship, I would rather have my third guy, Austin Reaves, and the things he does than Bradley Beal. If my top two guys are those guys," talking about Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. So he basically said that if my two guys are Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, Austin Reaves would be a better third option than Bradley Beal. And I actually agree with him on that. I think that is a very real, honest take. This doesn't mean who is the better player, right? Because that's how a lot of people, when this was said, took it as like, oh, here goes Nick Wright with some crazy, just nonsense talk, talking about how Austin Reaves and overhyping Reaves and blah, blah, blah. That's not what he was doing here, right? I just read you what he said. He's saying if Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are your two guys, Austin Reaves is the better third option than Bradley Beal. That is true. Doesn't mean that he's a better player than Bradley Beal. It just means that he would be a better fit. And he would. Right? He's a guy that can actually be a playmaker and play the point guard position. We have seen him do that in the Western Conference Finals. He did it at every level he's played in. Bradley Beal has made plays and is now going to have to try to play the point guard position. There's a big difference between making plays and actually having to be the playmaker. Big difference, right? Not everybody can be Chris Paul. Guys can play Chris Paul for a possession or a couple possessions a game, but to full-time be Chris Paul, that is a lot of work and it takes a very specific type of player. Austin Reaves can do that. Austin Reaves is a better complementary piece. He's not a number one guy. He doesn't care if he's a number one guy. He is better off the ball. So he's this constant threat. He's a better shooter. He's still creative and crafty and can get to the rim. He's still a solid defender by Bradley Beal standards. Like everything about Austin Reaves makes more sense than Bradley Beal as your third player with Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. Because Bradley Beal's skill set is kind of redundant, right? In like many ways, he's a worse Devin Booker. I mean, they do some things different. They do some things similar, but essentially that's what he's been, right? A slightly worse Devin Booker. Or way worse, depending on where you put Devin Booker, right? So this also got me thinking, is Austin Reaves one of the best third man in the entire league? And I'm not just talking about LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Austin Reaves. That's not what I mean necessarily. I mean Austin Reaves is one of those guys, you could put him on any team in the league right now, any team, and he would make a huge impact and play any role you want seamlessly. I mean, we've seen him do it with Team USA, coming off the bench, and was literally their best player. On a team full of stars, and franchise guy was literally their best player by every metric. Now, Anthony Edwards was their best player, but by every metric, Austin Reaves was. He was their most consistent player. He was their glue guy. All we heard is everybody just clamoring over Austin Reaves and Steve Kerr just clamoring over Austin Reaves and all that stuff. But I mean, really think about this for a second. I didn't say the best. I said one of the best. Because I do think that there are other guys that are very comparable, right? I've talked about Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday, I think, is one of those guys where, again, you could put him on any team, any roster, anything, and he's going to make a huge impact. He's going to be big for your team, right? There are other guys out there that I think are really good complements, third options. Even Chris Middleton. I've always said, I don't think he's a second option. I think he's a better third option. And I think he'll actually be better for Milwaukee than he's been last few years, which, I mean, he's been good for Milwaukee. But I just think now the pressure is away. But Austin Reaves, because, again, he's super efficient, which is huge. Because usually your third guy isn't going to get a ton of shots. So to have a guy that is super efficient and is going to be a 50, 40, 90 guy, that is huge. A guy that can play on the ball and off the ball and actually play on the ball. He could play on the ball full time if you wanted him to. He could just go and play point guard. He could play shooting guard. You could even play him in 3 in some spots, right? There's not very many just third option type players that are even comparable to Austin Reaves. I think you could make a real argument that he could be the best one. Right? The best third option in the league. I think you could make an argument for it. Just because of everything that he can do. He can play both sides of the ball. He's not some elite, Jared Vanderbilt type defensive guy, but he's serviceable enough. He's good enough in spots, right? And good in the team defense and stuff. But all of just his intangibles, his high IQ, being able to play off of other stars, everything that you could ever want from a third star or third option, Austin Reaves just check all the way down the board. Austin Reaves is the perfect complement in that third option type role. Because he's unselfish, doesn't care about his. He'll gladly go and be the assist man. He'll gladly go and make the hustle play. He'll gladly go and sacrifice his body. He's not afraid of the moment. He'll hit the big shot. He can take over down the stretch if your stars are having a rough go. He's going to pick up the slack on nights where you're resting. Everything you could want from a third option, Austin Reaves is that perfectly. And obviously he's going to be a huge factor for the Lakers this year. He's going to, and very likely will be their third best player. That's because I think he's going to have a huge role for the Lakers, right? I think it's going to be about opportunity. But D'Lo is a guy that I think is right there too. Especially with what we've seen so far in preseason, D'Lo's been A1. Seriously. D'Lo deserves a lot of love and credit. Because he is getting after it on both sides of the basketball. We've always known he could score the basketball. It's what can you do on the defensive side, right? That's been fantastic. Seriously, he's been everything you could ask for so far in preseason, and I imagine that translates. But Austin Reaves, he wants to be on the ball more. Lakers want to put him on the ball more. LeBron James absolutely loves him. Him and LeBron have a great relationship and dynamic. LeBron trusts him tenfold. So much so, we never saw LeBron do some of the things that he did in the playoffs and stuff for Austin Reaves. He's just Austin Reaves is that guy. He's an incredible talent, incredible player, hyper efficient, hyper intelligent. Like he has everything that you could want and then some as the third option. And I think Nick Wright is right. Like genuinely. Because Bradley Beal to me just kind of seemed like overkill, which is why I'm not like super sold on the Phoenix Suns. Because is Bradley Beal going to be okay with dropping the 13 to 15 points per game? Right? Like, I mean, like, that's how it works. Right? When you're the third option. Is Bradley Beal going to be okay and be able to find that balance as scorer and playmaker? Because again, big difference. It's one thing to just go out there and go, okay, well, let me go get 5 assists tonight. But you're the guy, and you're also the main scoring option, and those 5 assists can come whenever you feel like it. I've already gotten my 25. Let me go get a couple assists right now. Can't do that when you're playing the point guard position and you have Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, or Kevin Durant and Devin Booker on your team. You just can't. So, I mean, Austin Reaves, from every direction, I think it is the better compliment and one of the best in the entire league as far as third options go. But anyway, as always, again, let me know your thoughts and opinions. Do you agree? Do you think no? Give me a list of some guys that you'd put maybe not above, but alternatively, right? Couple like guys that you think would make excellent third options. I mean, and even if you do put them above Austin Reaves, I'd love to hear it. But I want to hear people's thoughts on like different guys. Again, like I mentioned earlier, like a Drew Holiday, a Chris Middleton, like guys like that, I think are excellent compliments, like in Austin Reaves. But again, how you feel? Let me know down in the comments.